A child wakes up. Both parents are gone. No warning, no explanation. Nobody is coming to help. In the world you live in, this triggers phone calls, paperwork, a system built specifically for this moment, a name assigned to a file, a case number, a process. In the world this child was born into, none of that exists. There is no office to call, no form to submit. So the real question isn't whether ancient children lost their parents. It's what happened in the moment right after. How did ancient orphans survive? The world this child is born into holds roughly 30 people, and nothing beyond that horizon offers protection. Past the fire line, leopards, drought, disease, and hunger with no calendar. Childbirth alone kills mothers routinely. Infection kills fathers on ordinary hunts. A cut on a hand can be a death sentence within a week. Death here isn't an event. It's background noise, as constant as weather. By modern instinct, this child's odds look almost impossible. No parents, no safety net, no institution built to catch a falling life. And yet, across tens of thousands of years and thousands of generations, humans didn't go extinct from parental loss. If anything, our species expanded. Something absorbed that shock every single time, quietly enough that most of us have stopped noticing it today. In 1992, researchers tracked something almost nobody had measured before. Exactly who was holding infants, hour by hour, among the foragers of the Congo rainforest? The pattern was stark. Infants spent more than half their waking hours in the arms of someone who was not their biological mother. Not weeks after birth, within the first days of life. That detail matters more than it first appears. It means the network of care wasn't something switched on after a mother died. It was already running, fully staffed, before any tragedy occurred. An infant was never truly dependent on one adult surviving. They were dependent on a group. And a group is far harder to lose all at once. 9,000 kilometers away, in Tanzania, anthropologists Alyssa Crittenden and Frank Marlowe spent 17 months living among the Hadza, one of the last populations on Earth still hunting and gathering the way humans did for most of our history. Their finding was blunt. Biological mothers provided less than half of a Hadza child's total care. Grandmothers filled in. Aunts filled in. Unrelated women filled in. Even unrelated men took on caregiving roles usually assumed to belong to mothers alone. Motherhood among the Hadza was never a solo assignment. It was shared labor by default, long before anyone died. A 2023 University of Cambridge review pulled studies like these together and found the same pattern repeating across societies with no contact with each other, on different continents. Non-biological caregivers consistently provide 40 to 50% of all childcare. That's not a coincidence of culture spreading from one group to another. That looks like a default setting, wired into the species itself, long before any of these specific societies existed. None of this ran on sentiment alone. Ancient groups didn't keep orphan children alive purely because it felt right. They kept them alive because it made cold, evolutionary sense. A child who survived to adulthood became a hunter, a gatherer, a defender, eventually a parent, feeding value back into the same group that once carried the cost of raising them. The math worked faster than you'd expect. By age 5, Hadza children were already producing 50 to 70% of their own daily calories through foraging. An orphan wasn't a permanent drain on the group's resources. It was a short-term cost with a fast, measurable payback. Kindness and self-interest in this world weren't opposites pulling in different directions. They pointed the same way. Run the counterfactual. A group that abandoned every orphaned child would lose future hunters, future mothers, future knowledge of which plants heal and which kill. Over enough generations, that group loses the evolutionary race to the one next door that didn't. But the numbers only answer half the question. Did these children actually feel abandoned? Probably not. For a reason that's almost mundane. Nothing in their daily environment changed. Same faces around the fire, same hands passing them food, same voices at night. The adults who stepped in weren't strangers assigned to a case file. They were already part of the child's world before the death ever happened. Which raises a question researchers themselves have started asking. Did an ancient orphan, inside a stable, familiar, unchanged environment, experience more emotional continuity than a modern child moved abruptly into an unfamiliar institution? It's worth sitting with that, because it inverts the assumption we usually start with, that older equals harsher and modern equals safer. Nobody can run that experiment cleanly, and some anthropologists caution against romanticizing hunter-gatherer life this way. But the structural difference in continuity of care is measurable, and it isn't small. This is the exact comparison the 2023 Cambridge Review made directly. On one side, hunter-gatherer childcare, spread across a dozen familiar adults, inside one continuous environment, without interruption. On the other, modern systems built around caseworkers, temporary placements, and institutional transitions. The researchers were careful here. They weren't arguing that foster care is unnecessary, or that modern systems fail on purpose. They were pointing at something structural. We built infrastructure to manually replace a form of communal care that, for most of human history, ran automatically, without anyone applying for it. Not because modern parents or modern institutions care less, because the surrounding network that used to share the job by default has largely disappeared from daily life. This isn't history sitting behind glass. Somewhere in your own life, there's probably an adult who helped raise you without being your parent. A grandparent who stepped in when things got hard. A neighbor, an older cousin, a teacher who noticed something nobody else did. Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer-Hrdy argues that humans are the only primate species that routinely allows non-biological caregivers to raise offspring from birth. And she frames this not as a cultural habit picked up along the way, but as a biological adaptation built into the species itself, as fundamental as walking upright. We weren't designed around an isolated pair of parents raising a child alone. We were designed around the group. For most of human history, when a parent died, the group absorbed the loss without a form, a waitlist, or a meeting. The child simply kept being raised by people who were already raising them. Then we built systems to formally do what evolution had already been doing for free for 1.5 million years without a single application. And somewhere in that transition, we started calling it progress.